You watch the news. You see the chemical mushroom cloud rising over East Palestine, Ohio. You see the door plug blow off a Boeing at 16,000 feet, and you ask yourself, how does this happen in a regulated world? You probably believe your safety is guaranteed by law. That is a comforting thought. It is also a lie. Right now, in a temperature-controlled office you will never enter, a risk analyst is actively betting against your survival. Whether it's the structural integrity of the bridge you drive across, or the side effects of the medication in your cabinet, your existence has been distilled into a number. In the industry, we call it the value of a statistical life, VSL. It is the cold, hard strike price a corporation is willing to pay to let you die rather than fix a flaw in their profit margin. Today, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency pegs the value of an American life at roughly $11.5 million. But to see the raw, bleeding heart of this calculation, we have to look back to a December night in 1984, to a city called Bhopal. This wasn't just an industrial accident. It was a forensic demonstration of geographic arbitrage. It was the moment the world learned that a life in the East trades at a 20,000% discount compared to a life in the West. Let us open the case file on the Union Carbide calculation. In 1984, Union Carbide Corporation was a titan. The 37th largest industrial company in the United States, a pioneer of the Green Revolution, promising to feed the world through chemistry. Their crown jewel in India was the Bhopal pesticide plant. But by the early 80s, the market had dried up. The plant was hemorrhaging cash, losing nearly $4 million a year. When a factory stops being a gold mine, it becomes a zombie asset. And when a corporation faces a zombie asset, it doesn't just close the doors. It starts optimizing for insolvency. In the boardrooms of Danbury, Connecticut, the mandate was absolute. Stop the bleeding. But you don't just cut the coffee budget in a chemical plant that handles methyl isocyanate. MIC isn't just a chemical. It is a ghost. A highly volatile, colorless liquid that turns into a heavy, suffocating gas the moment it touches water or heat. It is so toxic that the official safety manual warned that even a micro leak could be catastrophic. But safety is an operational expense. Safety requires a full staff of trained engineers. Safety requires refrigeration units running 24/7 to keep the MIC at a stable 0 degrees Celsius. The archivist's records show that between 1980 and 1984, the Bhopal plant's work crew was slashed by half. The maintenance supervisors cut from 6 to 0. The safety training reduced from 6 months to a mere 15 days of on-the-job observation. They weren't just trimming fat, they were lobotomizing the facility's nervous system. On the night of December 2nd, the optimization met the reality. A routine pipe washing operation went wrong because a crucial slip blind, a simple metal plate designed to prevent water from entering the chemical tanks, wasn't installed. Why? Because the maintenance worker, whose job it was to ensure that plate was in place, had been laid off months prior to save a few thousand rupees. As water surged into tank 610, containing 42 tons of MIC, a runaway heat reaction began. The pressure built. The heavy iron tank began to rumble, then vibrate, then shriek. The workers looked for the safety systems. The refrigeration unit that should have cooled the tank, it had been shut off for months to save $70 a day in electricity. The vent gas scrubber that should have neutralized the escaping gas, out of commission for maintenance. The flare tower that should have burned the gas off, disconnected. The calculation was complete. To save the price of a mid-range dinner in Manhattan, Union Carbide had turned a city of 1 million people into a gas chamber. When the pressure relief valve on tank 610 finally blew, it didn't sound like an explosion. It was a rhythmic, metallic hiss, the sound of 42 tons of methyl isocyanate screaming into the midnight air. MIC is heavier than the oxygen you breathe. It doesn't dissipate. It hugs the earth like a predatory fog. It rolled over the shantytown walls of Jayaprakash Nagar, seeping through the cracks of wooden doors and the gaps in corrugated tin roofs. The victims didn't wake up to a noise. They woke up to the sensation of their lungs turning into glass. MIC reacts with water. When it hits the moisture in a human eye or a throat, it creates an acid that burns from the inside out. Thousands of people began to drown on dry land. But while the streets of Bhopal were turning into a morgue, the real crime was being documented in a paper trail, 3 years in the making. If you want to find the smoking gun in a corporate disaster, you don't look at the broken valve. You look at the May 1982 Operational Safety Survey.
Sign it now.
This wasn't some hidden whistleblower's diary. It was an internal Union Carbide document, authored by American experts sent from HQ. It was a forensic prophecy. The report listed 61 hazards, 10 classified as major. It specifically warned of the possibility of a runaway reaction due to leaky valves and unreliable instrumentation. The executives in Danbury, Connecticut, received this report. They read the ledger of risks. And then they made a decision that defines the Capital Noir era. They chose asymmetric risk. To understand the mechanism of this disaster, you have to understand the corporate veil, the parent-child shell game. Union Carbide, USA, owned 50.9% of Union Carbide India Limited. This gave them total control over the dividends. But, in their legal minds, zero liability for the pipes. In their West Virginia plant, which handled the same chemicals, they used a computerized early warning system. In Bhopal, they relied on manual gauges. So corroded, the workers had stopped trusting them months before the leak. The mechanism of the calculation functioned in 3 distinct stages. First, the deliberate blindness. By 1982, the plant was a necrotic limb. The corporation stopped feeding it. They didn't just ignore the safety report. They actively hollowed out the plant's capability to respond. They cut the maintenance budget so deeply, the spare parts bin was literally empty. Second, the efficiency trap. This is where the math gets cold. The refrigeration system required to keep the MIC stable cost about $700 a month in coolant. In the context of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, that is a rounding error. It's the cost of a few nice chairs in the executive lounge. But on the Bhopal ledger, It was a saving. They drained the Freon. This meant the gas wasn't being kept at 0 degrees Celsius. It was simmering at room temperature, a bomb waiting for a fuse. Third, the ghost safety net. When the reaction began, the 3 physical barriers meant to save the city were already dead. The vent gas scrubber, designed to neutralize the gas with caustic soda, turned off to save on chemical costs. The flare tower, designed to burn off escaping gas, out of service because a rusted pipe hadn't been replaced. The water curtains, the pumps were underpowered and couldn't reach the height of the leak. Every single safety system was a hollow shell, a stage prop designed to pass a visual inspection, while the internal organs had been sold for scrap. When the news hit the United States, Union Carbide's stock price didn't just drop, it cratered, losing nearly $1 billion in market value. This is the moment the forensic business historian sees the pivot. The company wasn't worried about the bodies in India. They were worried about the street.
But the timing is precarious.
Their response was a masterclass in corporate gaslighting. They didn't apologize. Instead, they deployed the sabotage theory. Without a shred of physical evidence, they claimed a disgruntled worker deliberately hooked up a water hose to ruin the batch. They turned the victim into the villain. By framing it as an act of terrorism rather than gross negligence, they sought to sever the legal vein, connecting the American parent company's deep pockets to the Indian tragedy. They spent millions on private investigators and PR firms to muddy the waters. They didn't use that money to buy oxygen tanks. They used it to build a wall of complexity, a thicket of legal jargon and jurisdictional arbitrage, to ensure the case would never be heard in an American court. Because in an American court, a jury might see a human being. In the accounting of the shadow archivist, however, we see only the ledger. 3,000 dead in the first night, 15,000 inches the aftermath, and a corporation more concerned with its credit rating than its conscience. The aftermath of Bhopal wasn't a search for justice. It was a masterclass in the limited liability shield. 3 days after the clouds cleared, Union Carbide CEO Warren Anderson arrived in India. He didn't arrive as a penitent. He arrived as an asset manager. He was arrested, held for a few hours, and released on bail of roughly $2,000, less than the cost of his first-class ticket. He was spirited out on a government plane and never returned to face a judge. He died in 2014 inches, a Florida nursing home, a fugitive to the Indian courts, but a strategic genius to the American ledger. In 1989, the final calculation was etched into a settlement. Union Carbide agreed to pay $470 million. To you, $470 million sounds like a staggering sum. But let's look at the forensic breakdown of that number against the value of a statistical life. The per capita insult. When the money was distributed among the nearly 600,000 claimants, the average payout for a life destroyed was roughly $500. That is the price of a mid-range smartphone in 2026. That was the replacement cost for a father, a daughter, or a set of lungs. The stock market rebound. On the day the settlement was announced, Union Carbide's stock price rose. The market wasn't repulsed by the tragedy. It was relieved by the certainty. the liability had been capped. The unpredictable human cost had been converted into a predictable, manageable expense. The corporate shell game. In 2001, Dow Chemical bought Union Carbide for $10 billion. Today, they claim they didn't inherit the legal liabilities of Bhopal, only the assets. They kept the gold and left the poison in the soil. This is the Bhopal blueprint. It is the operating system of the modern world. It's why companies use layers of subsidiaries to insulate themselves from moral hazard. It's why your favorite tech brands can claim they don't employ the children in the mines that source their cobalt. They just buy the product from a middleman who buys it from a contractor. The distance between the boardroom and the consequence is the most profitable space in the global economy. The legacy of Union Carbide isn't just the rust-streaked pipe standing in India. The legacy is the math. It is the cold, quiet confidence of a system that knows exactly how much it will cost to let you suffer. And here is the uncomfortable truth for 2026. AI companies are modeling lawsuit exposure curves right now. Pharmaceutical firms run risk-adjusted revenue projections before drugs hit the market. Every time a safety regulation is rolled back to encourage growth, or a liability cap is signed into law. Remember Tank 610. The calculation hasn't changed. They've just gotten better at hiding the variables. The provocation. If your life were a line item on a corporate balance sheet tonight, would the cost of saving you be higher or lower than the cost of the settlement? Because in the ledger of history, every debt must eventually be paid.